In the hushed darkness of a Mesopotamian night, a pivotal moment loomed on the eve of October 1st, 331 BC. The ancient plains of Gaugamela, in what is now northern Iraq, were destined to be the stage for an epic clash between the Macedonian forces, led by the legendary Alexander the Great, and the formidable army of the Persian Empire, commanded by great King Darius the Third. As the Macedonian soldiers prepared for the impending battle, a palpable tension filled the air. Alone in their contemplations, each warrior grappled with the uncertainty of whether the approaching dawn would mark their last night on Earth. The vast Persian host, a seemingly insurmountable sea of humanity, lay encamped just 4 miles away. Parmenio, a seasoned commander in Alexander's army, proposed a daring strategy. A nocturnal assault that could catch the Persians off guard. Seeking to seize victory under the cloak of darkness, Parmenio urged Alexander to strike preemptively. However, the young king, known for his strategic acumen, rejected the notion. "No, I will not steal my victory," he declared. Alexander yearned for an unequivocal triumph, one that would unfold in the full light of day, leaving no room for denial or dispute. To comprehend the gravity of the impending conflict, it is essential to trace the roots of this ancient rivalry. The Persian kings, Darius the First and Xerxes, had launched ill-fated invasions of Europe in 492 BC and 480 BC, aiming to subjugate the city-states of Greece. Though unsuccessful, these incursions sowed the seeds of animosity that persisted for generations. The tumultuous era of the Peloponnesian War further fractured Greek city-states, leaving them vulnerable to external influences. However, a transformative figure emerged in the form of King Philip II of Macedon, whose ambitions sought to unite Greece against a common enemy: Persia. In 336 BC, Philip's assassination thrust his 20-year-old son Alexander onto the stage of history. Alexander, displaying exceptional military prowess, swiftly subdued rebellions and conveyed a clear message to the fractious Greek states. The ambitious young king embarked on a conquest to avenge past grievances against Persia. Leaving his capital, Pella, in 334 BC, Alexander led his army on a rapid 300-mile march to the Dardanelles, where the first clash with Persian forces awaited at the Granicus River. The battle at the Granicus River secured a Macedonian victory, but not without peril. Alexander's daring leadership almost cost him his life, saved only by the quick action of a loyal officer. With a foothold established in Asia, Alexander faced a strategic crossroads. Rather than risking all on a single inland thrust, he chose a coastal route along Asia Minor, where Greek cities yearned to break free from Persian dominance. In Miletus and Halicarnassus, the local Persian resistance faltered, and Alexander was hailed as a liberator by the grateful Greeks. The stage was set for the grand confrontation at Gaugamela, where Alexander the Great and Darius the Third would clash in a battle that would resonate through time. The destiny of empires hung in the balance, and the world awaited the outcome of a conflict that would shape the course of history. In the meticulous preparations leading up to the Battle of Gaugamela, Darius, the Persian king, went to great lengths to tip the scales in his favor. The natural undulations of the terrain were painstakingly flattened, and the brush was cleared away to create an ideal battleground. At the heart of Darius's strategy were his prized 200 chariots, swift vehicles equipped with sharp scythes on their wheels. However, these chariots demanded flat ground and ample maneuvering space to unleash their full potential. As the sun cast its first rays on the day of the decisive clash, Alexander the Great's generals were taken aback to find their leader still peacefully asleep in his tent. Little did they know, Alexander had spent the entire night contemplating various battle scenarios, finally succumbing to sleep just before dawn and awakening shortly before noon. Initially interpreted as a sign of unwavering confidence, whispers of concern began to circulate among the Macedonian commanders as the morning wore on. What could be the reason for Alexander's prolonged slumber? All doubts were dispelled when the young Macedonian king finally emerged from his tent. In the days preceding the battle, Alexander had meticulously ensured that his troops were well fed and well rested, in stark contrast to the sleep-deprived Persian host, which had remained on high alert throughout the night. Darius, haunted by the fear of a potential night attack, had kept his forces awake, a decision that would prove to be a critical miscalculation. The success of Alexander's strategy owed much to the army reforms implemented by his father, Philip II. Beyond his own strategic brilliance, the young monarch relied on the finely tuned instrument that was the Macedonian army. In the timeless tale of ancient warfare, the Macedonians stood as the epitome of military excellence, paving the way for Alexander's conquests and remaining unrivaled until the ascent of Rome nearly a century later. At the core of Alexander the Great's formidable army was the heavy infantry phalanx, a force indispensable to his conquests. The men constituting this phalanx, known as phalangites or foot companions, accompanying them were the hypaspists, a type of light infantry tasked with safeguarding the phalanx's flanks, wielding larger shields and shorter spears. Complementing these forces were the skilled skirmishers, collectively known as peltastai, which included javelin throwers, slingers, and archers. Diverging from the traditional Greek hoplite with their heavy metal-faced hoplon shields, the phalangites sported a smaller shield strapped to their left arms. This adaptation allowed them to use both hands to handle their distinctive weapon, the sarissa, an 18-foot pike, towering 3 times the length of a typical hoplite's 6-foot spear. The phalangite's helmet, often of the Thracian or Phrygian variety, featured a more open-faced design. The fundamental tactical unit within the Macedonian phalanx was the syntagma, a solid block of soldiers arranged 16 rows deep and 16 across. When advancing, the front ranks would extend their pikes toward the enemy, forming an impenetrable hedgehog-like barrier. This meticulous organization and equipment selection showcased the strategic brilliance behind Alexander's army and its adaptation of traditional military tactics to suit the challenges of its time. Darius envisaged the battle as primarily a cavalry engagement, pinning his hopes on the chariot corps and regular horsemen to secure victory. Upon awakening, Alexander, with his characteristic understanding of the importance of morale, sought to reassure his generals and instill confidence in his troops. As a commander, one of Alexander's strengths lay in his recognition of the psychological aspects of warfare. He made meticulous efforts to ensure his men were well provisioned, adequately clothed, armed, and imbued with a sense of unwavering confidence in their eventual triumph. Riding along the Macedonian line on his horse, he personally greeted individual soldiers, often calling out their names with warmth. Addressing the troops collectively, Alexander reminded them of their past bravery. Speaking as both their king and general, he emphasized his shared commitment to the impending risks and urged them to fight for Macedonia with the customary skill and courage that defined their legacy. Alexander's appeals resonated deeply with the Macedonian soldiers, and ancient chroniclers insisted that, at that precise moment, an eagle soared above the Macedonian army. Although the eagle likely rode thermal currents over the sun-baked plains, its changing direction to fly over the Persians was a moment seized by Alexander. Pointing to the majestic bird, he declared it an omen of Macedonian victory. In terms of battle arrangements, Alexander's strategic deployment mirrored the tactics employed at Issus. The heavy infantry phalanx commanded by Craterus formed the center of the Macedonian formation. On the right wing, light troops, the Hypaspists led by Parmenion's son Nicanor, were positioned. Alexander, along with his companion cavalry, also took their place on the right. Meanwhile, Parmenion led the left, primarily composed of Thessalian and Thracian horsemen. As the stage was set for the Battle of Gaugamela, Alexander's leadership and the collective spirit of the Macedonian army were poised for yet another historic confrontation. In anticipation of the possibility of a Persian flank envelopment due to their numerical superiority, Alexander the Great made strategic adjustments to his formations. Alexander placed infantry at angles on both ends of the right and left flanks. Additionally, he positioned a second line of more maneuverable Greek hoplites right behind the massive Macedonian phalanx formations. This second line could swiftly respond to attacks from the rear if the Persians managed a successful envelopment. The battle commenced with a shrewd move by the Macedonians. Alexander, leading his companion cavalry, executed an oblique angle movement to the right, creating the illusion of a Macedonian flank attack. Responding to this perceived threat, Darius ordered Bessus to move the Persian forces to the left. Unwittingly, as the Persians shifted left to counter the apparent flank attack, they exposed a gap in their battle line, separating the Persian left from the center. Seizing the opportunity, Alexander swiftly changed direction, advancing towards the widening gap in the Persian line. Darius, witnessing the unfolding events with growing alarm, directed his elite household cavalry to rush forward and confront the Macedonian threat. While the Macedonian right wing engaged the Persian left, the centers of the two armies entered into action. The Macedonian phalanx faced the Persian infantry and cavalry. However, the sheer numerical superiority of the Persian forces pressed hard against the phalanx, intensifying the combat. The Macedonian left flank, commanded by Parmenio, encountered overwhelming numbers of elite Persian troops, including formidable cavalry units. The potential turning point in the Battle of Gaugamela lay in the hands of the Cardusi and Scythian cavalry, whose serious attack on the Macedonian flank and rear could have had a decisive impact. However, the allure of plunder proved too tempting to resist. Instead of pressing a serious assault on the Macedonian forces, the horsemen diverted towards the baggage train located far in the rear. Within the baggage train were Persian captives, including Darius's own mother, Sisygambris. As the Scythian and Cardusi cavalry suddenly descended upon the baggage camp, pandemonium erupted. The camp plunged into chaos, filled with shouts, screams, and scattered movements in all directions. Although accounts vary, the raiders of the baggage train were eventually repelled. Recognizing the opportune moment to deal a decisive blow to the Persians, Alexander was determined to locate Darius within the chaotic battlefield and engage him in one-on-one combat. The outcome of such a confrontation held immense significance, as Darius served not only as a general, but also as the heart and soul of the Persian battle effort. Without Darius's leadership, the Persian army risked collapsing, lacking direction and leadership. While Darius displayed courage and prowess in combat, he had a tendency to fear capture more than death. Some accounts describe a moment during the battle when Alexander and his companion cavalry closed in on Darius's chariot, and Alexander hurled a javelin. However, the javelin missed its intended target by inches and struck and killed the chariot driver instead. The nearby Persian horsemen, caught in the frenzy of battle and obscured by rolling dust clouds, believed Darius had been fatally struck. A desperate and alarmed shout arose from the Persian ranks, spreading a sense of despair. Witnessing what they thought was Darius's fall, the Persians closest to the scene began to flee. Even as Darius got up and demonstrated that he was unharmed, cavalry, who moments before had fought bravely, now competed to be the first to escape. Infantry, who had faced the bristling Macedonian pikes with courage, suddenly abandoned the field, fleeing as fast as their legs could carry them. The belief that Darius had been killed, even if momentarily, unleashed a cascading wave of panic and chaos among the Persian ranks. As the panic spread through the Persian ranks, their ranks dwindled as individuals decided to abandon their positions, leaving Darius increasingly vulnerable. Seeing his bodyguard disintegrate and Alexander closing in, Darius made a swift decision to leave. The battlefield, by this time, was shrouded in thick, yellowish clouds of dust, kicked up by the multitude of feet and hooves in the tumultuous retreat. Alexander, eager to pursue his defeated adversary, was thwarted by the thick dust clouds, preventing him from determining the route of Darius's escape. Alexander's disappointment was palpable, as he realized that capturing Darius was crucial to completing his conquest of the Achaemenid Empire. Darius, however, harbored no intentions of surrendering or relinquishing his throne. Despite the vastness of the empire and the recent defeat, he hoped that the eastern provinces would remain loyal. Gathering the remnants of his defeated army, Darius aimed to build a new force in the following weeks and months. Unfortunately for Darius, he never got the opportunity for a third chance to save his empire. Bessus and other satraps, driven by their own ambitions, arrested the king and placed him in golden chains, a symbolic gesture of his high status. However, Darius's captivity was short-lived, as Bessus, aspiring to power himself, had Darius murdered. The Battle of Gaugamela marked the effective end of the Achaemenid Empire. While ancient sources provide varying casualty figures, modern estimates suggest that the Persians suffered around 40,000 casualties, while the Macedonians incurred losses of approximately 1,000 cavalry and 300 infantry. Alexander's triumph at Gaugamela solidified his status as one of history's greatest conquerors.